Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for being here today. I want to talk about the costs of war. The costs of war include caring for our veterans. We've had an estimate from Mr. Hirsch yesterday that the cost to date in dollars for this war has been $25 billion, which I believe is well below the actual cost based on everything that I've heard, everything available to us in various kinds of settings, and I'm going to ask for a more accurate assessment. But we also know that about 400 service members have been wounded as a result of this war. When they retire, when they come home, their retirement pay will be docked dollar for dollar for every disability benefit dollar they receive.
We're going back inside the lion's den. You just watched Senator Richard Blumenthal forcefully challenge Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth in a tense exchange over the administration's war strategy. Forget the polished press releases. Today, we are tearing the lid off a military narrative that is being aggressively gold-plated by the Pentagon. Hegseth is trying to sell the American public an astonishing success, but Blumenthal is here to show us the receipts, and they don't add up. This is a strategy built on bureaucratic smoke and mirrors, where realism is nothing more than a convenient mask for a Middle Eastern quagmire that violates every promise this administration made to the voters. We're moving past the talking points to examine a strategy that burns billions while abandoning the soldiers who actually bear the scars of battle.
Mr. Secretary, I know you have characterized this war as an astonishing military success, to use your words yesterday. But the American people aren't buying it. And I know you feel the American people are seeing through the abstruse stuff that is thrown at them, but one point is irrefutable, which is America never succeeds in war unless the American people are behind it. And if what you're seeing as success now is winning, I would hate to see what losing looks like, because none of the shifting and contradictory objectives of the war so far have been achieved.
I would hate to see what losing looks like. That line cuts right to the heart of the administration's hypocrisy. They are declaring victory, while the goals keep shifting, and the checkbook remains wide open. Where is the achievement when the mission changes every time the wind blows? They claim they are reshaping the region, but the only thing truly being reshaped is our national debt and the growing list of casualties. Blumenthal is highlighting a dangerous disconnect. In Washington, success is a word used by officials to save their careers, but for the families carrying the consequences, that word is a lie. If the mission is invisible and the goals are moving targets, the public has a right to know, who exactly is this success for? Is it for the people writing the Pentagon briefings, or for the Americans who will be paying this bill for decades after the war is over? This is where the official illusion falls apart. You cannot fight a war without a moral contract. Hegseth talks a big game about supporting the troops, but watch his body language when Blumenthal corners him on the wounded warrior tax. This is a predatory system that literally steals retirement pay from disabled veterans to balance the books. It's not just an accounting error, it's a betrayal of those who sacrifice their health for what Hegseth calls a historic mission.
Secretary Hegseth, I'd like your commitment that you will support the Major Richard Starr Act that will eliminate this wounded warrior tax. I'm sure you're familiar with it. Tens of thousands of servicemen and women now are reduced in their retirement pay literally for every dollar of disability benefits they receive.
Well, I appreciate your focus on this issue, and I will tell you you mentioned roughly 400 that have been injured. Thankfully, over 90% are returned to duty. But that doesn't mean they wouldn't have a residual challenge. And we're tracking that at point of injury to ensure that that is noted, even though they're returned to duty.
But what I'd like is your commitment that you will support the Major Richard Starr Act.
As I have said in the past to other organizations, we support the Richard Starr Act.
Notice the deflection. Hegseth immediately hid behind a statistic, 90% return to duty, as if that somehow makes the wounded warrior tax acceptable. He's trying to use a spreadsheet to mask the indecency of a government clawing back money From those too broken to serve, Blumenthal had to drag a commitment out of him. It's a national disgrace that we are still docking the pay of our heroes to pay for the Pentagon's mistakes. Blumenthal wasn't looking for a battlefield update. He was demanding a moral baseline. Statistics might soften the blow for a TV audience, but they don't help a wounded veteran pay a mortgage. Returning to duty doesn't erase trauma, it doesn't erase the neurological damage or the invisible wounds that follow our soldiers home. This isn't about math, it's about whether the government actually keeps its promise to the people it puts in harm's way. Let's talk about the fiscal gaslighting. Hegseth wants us to believe this entire war cost only $25 billion. Blumenthal knows better. He knows he's talking to the only agency in the U.S. government that has never passed a single audit. This isn't a real budget estimate, it's creative writing designed to prevent a taxpayer revolt. How can we trust a $25 billion figure when they can't even tell us the cost of the bases that were turned to rubble?
On the issue of cost, Mr. Hurst, does that $25 billion estimate include all of the costs in terms of damage to our bases, the need to replace planes and munitions, and the costs of injuries to our servicemen and women?
Senator, so for the Milcon facilities replacement cost, that's probably the hardest thing to estimate right now because we don't know what our future posture is going to be or the future construction of those bases.
Well, you owe it to us. You're here to ask for appropriations.
Of course.
And I would like a more accurate estimate of what has been done that will require replacement and renovation, as well as the other costs. And I think $25 billion is probably less than half, maybe less than a quarter of the total cost of war, which is the reason why the supplemental request is much higher. So I think you owe it to the American people to give us the straight talk about what the costs have been.
And here is what makes that answer even more alarming. The longer officials delay a full accounting, the larger the hidden liabilities become. Replacement aircraft, damaged facilities, depleted precision munitions, long-term rehabilitation, future disability obligations. Those costs do not vanish because they are missing from a hearing room estimate. They simply move off the front page and onto the taxpayer's future balance sheet. Blumenthal is essentially demanding something basic. Before Congress writes another check, tell the country what the last check actually bought. We have a $40 trillion debt, yet we are pouring wealth into a military black hole with zero accountability. They're begging for supplemental billions, but they can't even price the damage they've already taken. Blumenthal is 100% correct. $25 billion is a joke. When you add up the munitions, the aircraft, and the lifetime of rehabilitation, we are staring at a fiscal disaster that could sink the entire economy. When a bureaucrat is cornered by the truth, they lash out. Hegseth actually called the press Pharisees for doing their jobs and asking difficult questions. It's a classic defensive crouch. Label the critics as religious hypocrites to distract from your own strategic failure. But the real mask-off moment came when Blumenthal challenged the claim that Ukraine has been defeated.
Likewise, let me ask you, yesterday, the President said that Ukraine has been, quote, militarily defeated. I assume you don't agree with that assessment.
The negative nature in which you characterize the incredible and historic effort in Iran is part of the reason, Senator, why the American people view it the way they do. It's why I looked out at our press corps at the Pentagon and called them the Pharisees in the press. It's because they look for every problem.
Well, I'm asking you about
you look for every
Ukraine.
problem
Do
that
you
exists,
Ukraine
and you
has
miss.
been militarily defeated.
You miss the
I would
plank.
submit, based on my 9 trips to Ukraine, that is a false narrative that the President's buying
We are 2
from
months
Vladimir
into a
Putin.
historic military success in Iran, and you
will
want to call it a
dispute it
defeat. And it's
because
defeatist Democrats
it
like
is
you
the
that
people
cloud
of
the mind of the
Ukraine
American
who are
people.
Think about the audacity. Hegseth is calling a sitting senator defeatist for noticing that the president is repeating Vladimir Putin's propaganda. He is so desperate to hype his Iran success that he's willing to parrot a Kremlin talking points about our allies. He calls journalists Pharisees simply because they report the chaos he's responsible for. This isn't the behavior of a leader, it's the tantrum of a thin-skinned bully. This exchange reveals the collapse of accountability. When oversight is treated as disloyalty, democracy is in trouble. Senators and journalists are supposed to test these narratives. That isn't sabotage, it's the system working exactly as the founders intended. When leaders start treating the truth as an enemy, they lose their credibility faster than they lose a battle. This final section should make your blood boil. Blumenthal exposes how this administration has gutted the State Department. We've managed to alienate NATO, insult President Macron, and sideline actual experts in favor of a couple of amateurs. They've traded our most talented diplomats for 2 real estate guys and a policy of schoolyard insults.
Administration, and they are bravely fighting our fight. And that is the reason that I'm pursuing the Russian sanctions bill, which is bipartisan, along with Senator Graham, and why I hope we will recognize our obligation to release that $400 million, which we've appropriated.
Thank you, Senator Blumenthal. Senator Ernst.
2 real estate guys. That is who is running our global strategy while the world burns. They've swapped decades of diplomatic expertise for a deal-making approach that has yielded absolutely nothing. They roll out the red carpet for Putin while treating Zelensky like a nuisance. The hypocrisy is staggering. They trample on our values to please a dictator. While burning hundreds of billions on a fabricated success in Iran, Hegseth can attack the press all he wants. But this isn't realism. It's a catastrophe wrapped in arrogance. They are bankrupting our future and turning our back on the allies, all while pretending they've achieved a historic victory. They are literally docking the pay of wounded heroes to fund a war they are too incompetent to even price correctly. If this video helped you see through the fog of Washington's lies, hit like and share. Drop a comment below on the $25 billion fiction and subscribe for more autopsies of the truth.